Well, hello everyone. Welcome to our webinar from startup to 2 million monthly, the Cultivate Advisors Growth Blueprint. We are so honored that you joined us today. For those of you that aren't familiar with Riverside, I'm going to give a couple of housekeeping items. There is a live chat. And so just so that I know that you found it and you know where it is, why don't you pop your name in there, your company name, and your LinkedIn profile so we can all connect with each other. If you have questions, as Dan is kind of going through the content today, feel free to pop questions in there. Steve and I will bring those up at the end of our time. So we'll make sure that we leave some space and time for that. But enough of the housekeeping items. With me today is our host, Steve Caton, who is the founder of Altezza Solutions, and our special guest, Dan Grauman, who's the co-founder of Cultivate Advisors. So guys, I will hand it over to you.
Awesome. Thanks, Craig. Appreciate you getting us all dialed in with the new technology. And Dan, it's good to see you, man. Thanks for being here. Looking forward to turning this over to you. But before I do, let me just introduce you a little bit and how we met. It was over a couple of years ago. I had the privilege of meeting someone from Cultivate Advisors, so one of the advisors, and really was just impressed with the fact that you guys are really focused on helping business owners who are trying to scale towards an eventual exit of some sort. It certainly caught my attention because I had that in mind when I started Altezza. And I had the privilege of attending an event you guys had in Houston in 2024. And then I didn't know it at the time, but when I got there and got to experience the event, I realized I was in the middle of a 10-year celebration, 10-year anniversary celebration. So it was a ton of fun to be there for that. And I felt honored by that. And I also just had a great time meeting so many people from the team. But what stood out to me is I was at that event and, meeting you and meeting Casey and all the advisors was just the amazing story that has happened in a relatively short period of time. I think most of us who are business owners know how rare it is for new businesses to even survive 10 years, much less get to the point that you guys got to in 10 years. So as I was watching all the videos and the slideshows that you guys had at the celebration, I was just sitting there thinking, man, what a dream that would be to see something like that happen for Altezza as well. And so I've just been super impressed with the story. We are privileged to be a client of Cultivate Advisors and working with Jay Cash, who is our advisor, has been helping us to kind of get our ducks in a row and scale as well. So really a privilege, Dan, to be able to just have you here to share some of the story that there is to share behind that journey, because I know there's a lot there. And I know that a lot of business owners are probably wondering, hey, how in the heck did they do that? How did you get there? What decisions fueled this incredible growth? What systems were necessary to make it possible? What kind of people did it take? What were some of the mistakes that maybe you made that you could help us avoid? All those are great topics that I'm sure we're coming into this time with in our heads. So I'm going to turn it over to you and let you take us down that road, brother. But thanks for being here, man.
Sounds good. Thanks, Steve. Thanks, Craig. And Steve, yeah, I didn't even think about that. You were the first person in our network that was not part of the team to be invited to that style of event. And yeah, it was our 10-year anniversary. It was quite the celebration.
Yeah,
So
wonders.
sorry you missed the one in Cabo. That was killer. We even got a button on the stage to hit, and fireworks went off on the stage on the beach with everybody out there. But Houston was cool too. Maybe we'll switch it up and we'll figure out a way to get you to Mexico and see that again.
Yeah, Houston's not Cabo, that's for sure.
Yeah, that was our first time coming back to the US for that retreat. Anyways, hey, it's so great to meet everybody here. And it's an absolute honor to stand in front of so many other entrepreneurs. I respect everything that we're all going through as we build businesses together. And as much as I'd love to share with you nothing but rainbows and unicorns of this journey to 2 million monthly revenue, it's you can only imagine how many times I have failed
Mm.
over and over and over and over again, or spent time and money that went to nowhere. But the beauty is like when I share the journey today, it'll be here's the story. My plan is to share what's the story of how we built it, but then I'm also going to share what is our process, because I think some of you are curious of like, what is your client prospect? How do you get prospects in the door? How do you create a great customer experience before they even become clients? And what is the ongoing piece that we provide that allows them to scale so much and they experience ROI and they stick as well, because it's a back and forth win-win. If we're not winning together, there's no sense in doing this together. So I'll share that, and then I plan to wrap it up with just sharing a lot of the things that were key pivotal points that I think we all can be aware of on the journey of growing a business over the years ahead, and just things that might support like where your mindset needs to be as you take on each chapter in the business. And then we'll do Q&A at the end here. By the way, if you're all in the chat here, I am curious, where are you calling in from? What state, what city? Just curious where people are actually located on today's webinar. So jump in the chat. All right, ooh, Colorado Springs, Cincinnati, Ohio. Nice, Todd. I've been to Cincinnati. That is a good time. I'm from Milwaukee, so a lot of German heritage here, and I think Cincinnati actually takes the pie when it comes to the most Germans here in the U.S. So awesome, Orange County, Ashburn, awesome. Well, thank you everybody here. I promise you, my goal here is not to waste your time. I'm really hoping that if you stick around for the entire hour, that even if you just grab a 1 minute nugget, that 1 minute was the thing you were looking for. That's the goal. No promises that you get 60 nuggets in 60 minutes. I promise you that. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and get us rolling here. And then we will jump right in. What you don't know is, so as you saw branded for today's webinars, you see Cultivate Advisors. What you don't know is that I actually am part of 4 brands now. And so all my time is currently on our 4th brand that we launched last year, which is actually a software company. I never thought in my life that I would end up in the world of SaaS product. But somehow here we are. And as you can all imagine, as entrepreneurs, like things pivot over time and new opportunities. And so Propel Your Business is now where all my time and energy is. We do have a president in place for the other 3 brands that we have here at Cultivate Brands. But I'm going to tell you the kind of like the full picture journey of how we got to this place. So my background is that when I was employee number 1 in my parents' business. So back in the day when back when we used to print paper all the time, even to when you'd have to rip that perforated tab off the side of the printer paper, my parents were kind of in the early stage of where in court and trials, lawyers started to want to take things digital. So they had a business where basically we would take all of the paper documents, boxes and boxes of paper that were going to be used as evidence, and scan them in and make them in digital format to present in front of juries and judges. So I got to feed paper into a scanner. That was my first job as employee number 1 for my parents. I did that from the time I was 13 to 18 years old. My dad asked me, would you ever want to buy this business? And I said, hell no. I had zero interest in my parents' business. It just felt too boring for my flavor. But I definitely got a good taste of what happens for entrepreneurs over life. Lots of war stories there. When I was 20, I bought my first company. It was a franchise painting homes. So I did that successfully for a couple of years. I was making more money in college than I was going to make when I graduate, because I was going to be a 2nd grade school teacher. Little fun fact for you. But I decided to switch my major to business after enjoying being an entrepreneur so much and just seeing the opportunity to educate and work with adults and have like a team of employees. So from 20 to 26 years old, I owned a franchise, and then the franchisor called me and asked me to actually go sell franchises, train them, and consult them on growth. So got very used to starting businesses from 0 revenue and scaling them up. And then after that, a larger franchisor, you might know Paul Davis Restoration. They do insurance restoration. I went over there and I launched 60 franchises for them. And again, consulting them on scales. And it was after that that we decided that Casey and I would found a company where we could kind of take the same principles of starting companies and scaling them and build our own advisory firm. So where it all began was basically we were at an alumni event of one of those franchisors, and we ran into Mike. And Mike basically said, can I buy you guys a steak dinner? And can you just like rip into my business no different than you guys did when I was a franchisee of yours at the painting industry? And so we did that. We kind of set up a continued cadence with him after a time where it was no longer steak dinners, but it was actual money. So we could actually collect money and have revenue. And eventually we helped him scale his business to where eventually he had a very successful exit for his boutique real estate firm here in Chicago. And that was kind of the first test subject of building our consulting and advising practice. So yes, I used to have hair back in the days. Steve, I'm sure you've got pictures from back in the day for you as well, but that's where Casey and I said, we've got something here. Let's actually make this a reality. So it was in 2014 that we went into a full-time year to actually launch the business. And we had no idea what we were doing. We spent terrible money on Fiverr and other areas to build graphics for our terrible website. And we thought that this concept of growing businesses was no different than growing trees, and the tree was the company. Anyways, I'm going to stop embarrassing myself. We didn't know what we were doing when it came to marketing, and our website was absolutely worthless. All we knew is we needed to go out there, meet entrepreneurs, and go help them scale and get at least 20 to 40 under our belt. And so eventually by 2016, we decided, all right, we've got enough revenue. Let's reinvest our money into a team. So we developed our first initial team of advisors here, and our company name was originally HFI Consulting. And we set our BHAG to grow to $10 million in 5 years. And so it was a 20x goal. And while a lot of the team was like, this is nuts, how are we going to do this? We saw the path and we kept our heads down and really figured out, how do we bring the right people on the bus and make sure that we make this reality? And we knew that it couldn't just be being amazing salespeople, right? You can be the best salespeople in the world, but if you can't do excellent work and retain your clients, it's going to fall apart. So it came down to excellent service, amazing ROI for clients, on top of being an amazing marketing and sales team at the same time. And so sure enough, that's what we did here. So you can see 2018, we got over 100 clients. 2019, we had over 300 active clients. And then at 2021, we got over that 500 active clients, and we hit the BHAG for the 5-year. And so where we stand today, we're now in our 7th year in a row on the Inc. 5000. And there's a lot more that's kind of come with that. And again, I think we're most proud of the work we have done. So if you go on Cultivate's Google reviews, you'll see that there's basically all 5 stars, and the clients are really appreciative of the work we've done together to scale and grow to the next level. So we've now advised over 3,000 businesses, over $200,000 worth or 200,000 hours of advisory. And we now currently have over $1 billion in active revenue that we're advising at this point. And so you can see, based on what the title was today, is we grew the practice to a place where we got over $2 million in recurring coaching revenue. And we have over 50 business advisors at this point. And we're very excited about where we stand today with the accolades here. Steve, this was the beach that you missed. This was Cabo. I'm so sorry. You got to come to Houston. Houston's cool too, but
I like
we'll change it up. We'll
amazing.
figure out how to get back here. And at the end of the day, I would love to say, hey, this was all me, me, me. The reality is I give full credit to this team. So the secret sauce for us, people always ask, how are you able to get to this place over the years? I would say it's not Casey and myself, even though I think we've got a good vision. We've got pretty good leadership with our people. We are really, really, really good and heads down on hiring the best people. And the reality is we don't have to pay the best money. We do have a role that is based on how well they perform inside the company and for their clients. So they don't make great money unless they do great work here, right? But we are really good at finding amazing people to drive the future of the company. And so if you can really master those first couple hires, and then the next 10 hires, and the next 10 hires, don't hire fast, really get it right and dial it in. This has been the secret right here. These amazing people that are on this picture. And so that was the year before, when we were at, I think we had 100 people, and now we're at about 140 people on the team. This year we went to Orlando. Good times. Our HR person happens to be a Disney buff. So Jeremy, of course, took us to Orlando. We went to Epcot. Our new current BHAG is 100 million by 2030. So definitely keep track and keep touching with us here and see us as we go achieve this. There's going to be a lot of different ways we do it, and I'll share more in a little bit. So one thing you didn't know is that we started to move into a place of acquisitions here. So Cultivate Advisors is the original founding brand. Last year, we acquired a coaching firm out of Nashville called Petra Coach. This is better suited for companies that are typically 20 million to a half a billion. They're really good at building amazing performance cultures inside of organizations. And we had a client that we took her $800,000 bookkeeping firm in Delaware to 3 million in a couple of years. And then we actually, we purchased the firm from her and kept her as the president. And Breakwater is doing amazing work today. So when you look at what Cultivate Brands is about now, we're moving to this place where we're surrounding ourselves with other amazing brands that serve entrepreneurs as we scale to the next level. And Propel Your Business is now that fourth brand where it's all about focused on lifting up the industry, right? So we're now working with a lot of other professional service firms out there that are serving the entrepreneurial market to actually lift up where it stands today. So I don't know if you guys know, but in general, there's about 80,000 plus US based coaching firms right now. And the average one is doing about 175K a year. And we'd love to see that performance go up. And so we're starting to allow them to adopt all of our technology and systems. And so that's our other outlet now to have more and more impact to the entrepreneurs here in the US and across North America. So the one thing that we do is that this has really been a key to success for our clients, but also for ourselves. And what has been part of like why we are able to hit these goals is we actually lead ourselves and we lead our clients on understanding enterprise value. Understanding like, what is the value of my asset, your business, right? You spend way more time on your business than you do your house. But for some reason, we're willing to go on Zillow and look at how much our house might be worth today. But are we doing that in our own business to go, what is this asset that I'm putting so much time into? And understanding the measure of where it is today and how do I increase the asset value of this business? So we're always measuring the company's value over time. And that plays into the methodology that we lead ourselves on to grow our company here to where it is today. But we do it as well with our clients here at Cultivate. And so the goal is to start to shift from not only looking at revenue and profit, but really looking at enterprise value. Because if you really watch enterprise value, the profits and revenues follow, right? And so we're really starting to make sure that this is a thing that we're looking at as we grow over time. What you might not know is that 30 businesses that go on the market in the US don't sell. Or I'm sorry, actually sell. So it's the flip. So that means 70%, some are saying more, 70 to 80% of businesses that list their business on the market don't sell, right? And so for those of us that have entrepreneur friends or parents or family, like I'm sure you've heard stories out there of like their business, they did this thing their whole life and there was nothing at the end of the rainbow for them. The other stat is that 10% of businesses that did sell actually received the value that they were expecting for it. So this is why we're flipping the script to actually start to understand. And again, like this is something that I'm trying to share with you so that you start to really look at your enterprise value and start to set that North Star as well as you figure out how do I build enterprise value. So the other thing too is like when you really hyper focus on building a high valued asset, you enjoy the business more, right? It's no different than when you're about to sell a house. If you're about to sell a house and all of a sudden you do this big honey-do list and remodel the kitchen or the bathroom, and then all of a sudden you're sitting there right before the new buyers sign the contract and get to move into the house, you're like, why didn't we do this for ourselves? Why didn't we do all these projects for our own business that we could have enjoyed where this thing was a well-oiled machine to enjoy while we owned this business, but now the buyer gets it? So just flipping it on its head of like, why do you really slow down? And we do that all the time internally here at Cultivate. And again, as we lead clients, we're really looking at that North Star as well. The other thing is that nearly 50% of businesses exit involuntary, forced by dramatic external facts, death, disability, divorce, disagreement, disruption, right? And so these two gentlemen I hear on the screen, they're both their names are Bill. This guy looks like me because that's actually my dad. And then this guy here, Bill, he passed away last year, but they both are business owners and they both had non-exit events, right? And so the reason is like, we all think that we've got this life that just keeps going and like, we don't think about what could happen. And so build the asset value of business because then on the terrible side of like, if anything ever happened to us, that our family can actually enjoy the work we put in, right? So now my dad is still alive today. He just went through some distress in the business. He had cancer numerous times throughout the business. But after 25 years in business, he just ended up shutting it down after a buyer walked away from the offer on the table. And then for Bill, he passed away. And after his life event, he had a $30 million construction company that went to zero, and all the employees kind of left within 3 months. So just being extremely conscious of why do we put the time in, not only for us to enjoy the business today, because it's an amazing asset, but also just being ahead of the risk management as well. So when it comes to how we lead ourselves on growing the business, some of you already took that health score, the business value and health assessment. I'll share more of how we have been using that a lot, but we are looking at 24 value drivers that are industry agnostic that apply to any business owner. And that as we increase the engines in these categories, the asset value goes up and the business is far more enjoyable and it performs at a higher rate. So as you can see, we're working on the sales and marketing engines in the company to build revenue, right? And as we create revenue, that creates a whole other issue in the business, capacity and managing the revenue. So now we need to be aware of who are we recruiting onto the bus? What is the recruiting engines to get the best people ever? And what are our leadership systems to make sure we have a performance culture to achieve our goals for the future? And are we really clear on our financial systems? Because it's the engine of the propeller that we are very aware of cash, margin, all these things. We got plans for the future that are dictated across the entire company because we can make conscious decision making. And then productivity is all the SOPs and tech enablement that live inside of all areas of business, that as we get those in place, the business thrives more and more. So there's basically 4 key areas per category here that we look at on the health score as we build enterprise value. And we look at this every month within our own business, and we measure it, improve it, measure it, improve it. And as we do that, we keep scaling and thriving here. And it's what our clients experience as well. So when it comes to stopping the chaos here, these drivers just play a huge part. And so what we do is we then take the advice. When we take people through a sales process, at least in our company, we pick a member of our team for the client based on their expertise. Not necessarily that they were working in the same industry of that entrepreneur. It's just that they are awesome at that 1 or 2 core areas that they need the most. So if they need a lot of revenue figure out of marketing and sales, we're going to pick the best advisor on that. If it's more of a people problem and like we need better people, we need to recruit and we need leadership systems, we're going to pick the entrepreneur advisor that crushed it in that area. So that value driver allows us to at least do the matchmaking here at Cultivate. So, and as we do the work with clients, we establish the baseline of where the market industry is for them currently. We assess those 24 value drivers to then build a strategic roadmap of all the things we're going to work on and build for the future of the company. And then we just keep measuring results ongoing together as we create the pivots, the new processes and strategies. And so I share it to you to not go, this is not me telling you, hey, be a client of mine. I'm actually going like, this is the same methodology that we apply to Cultivate every day on ourselves. So I just took everybody out of the leadership team of all 4 brands, took them to Chicago last week, and we slowed down and did this exact thing. We built our plans. We took our vision, we made our BHAGs, we went into our macro plan, our micro, and we built out a strategic roadmap together. And while some of the people were new to the company, like, why do we need 3 days for this? By the time they left, they're like, this is awesome. I'm so glad we made space to walk away from being in the business to working on what are we building here together. So ask yourself that question. Are you creating enough time to really build a plan for the future and work on the business, not just in it? Because we do it here ourselves all the time and it makes a big difference. So if you're curious about how we get clients to have discussions with Cultivate, it starts back here at step 1. So quite a few of you took the health and value assessment. Thank you for sharing that. Don't worry if there's an email that hits you, you can just hit unsubscribe if you don't want our marketing emails. But I will not have my sales team reach out. I just wanted you to see that tool because you could then see what is the baseline, like how do you kind of just look at and educate on enterprise value. And so that is where you got that health gap. We bought 77,000 pieces of data of previous businesses that have sold in the last 10 years. and we rolled them up by industry so that we could educate entrepreneurs on how much are companies selling for on the low and high multiples currently for your style business. So what you got in that report is what the current potential value is on where your health score is, and what the opportunity of if you increase the health to 100%, what is the top line metric of the highest multiples out there? So you can only imagine we've got a really great value add tool that not only entrepreneurs are taking a lot to create conversation for us, but we also have a lot of other professional service providers that are partners of ours that they're using the tool as well to give value to their client pool of entrepreneurs. So, and I can chat more with you if you have any questions on how we approach strategic partnerships, if that's kind of something you're trying to solve right now. Is like, how do you create fruitful strategic partnerships and create a ton of value where it's a win-win-win? This tool has been a big key to success where we're not gaining money out of this tool. It's actually a giving gift in so many ways. And it's creating a spark of conversation with the right people that we really think we can help. This was a very expensive tool for us to build and continue to do the maintenance on, but it looks so simple when you get that 25-page report, but there's a lot that's been invested into that, including even the data on the back end. So then what we do is we then identify their desired enterprise value and the timeline, and then we break down into the health and performance needs to achieve that. So for clients that have taken that assessment and they want to have a conversation, go like, hey, how would you approach my business? We do a ton of free advising sessions for entrepreneurs every year. And that's what allows us to actually just start to build out an initial plan for them. So that's part of our sales process where we get to date each other and take a test drive and see if it makes sense that we could actually go crush it together. So again, no money given to us yet on the assessment side or on the 2-hour deep dive. We are truly giving a ton of value to qualified candidates and entrepreneurs, over $1 million in revenue typically. Okay. And what happens is then after we build this plan, they're like, wow, okay, I see the path and I really would love to get to this place of enterprise value. And I really want to make sure I improve this area of the business. And I really see a big gaping hole over here. I'm really curious how we'd approach it. We build out those initiatives and we have a very clear plan of how we get there. And that's where we then go like, what are the strategic improvements and initiatives that would allow us to get to there? So we actually start to do this work. If they sign on as a client, we track everything and we have projects laid out for everything that we're going to build out together with the owners of these companies. And the software just kind of leads the component with or without the advisor. It just happens to be a great software that the entrepreneur is seeing success themselves, just driving their own initiatives and their own goal setting and actually leading all of their employee meetings through it. But for the advisor, they have a lot of great structure and there's good tracking of, am I doing everything I need to create success for them? And so that hits the second part of what I shared earlier is we're not just a good sales organization that gives a ton of value on the front end. We really focus on the deliverables and the ROI for the client. Because if we miss this piece and it's not completely visible of everything that we're building to create success, they would leave us. So if you've got a great sales and marketing process to get clients in the door, and you've got a winning process that keeps clients crushing it, it's a win-win situation. You're going to grow and thrive. So as you can see, we're always measuring results and we're always checking in with our clients every other week with them. We've got quarterly reviews and we've got annual reviews, and we continue to update the health scores of everything that we're improving inside of the business while we increase the enterprise value to get to the goal that they want to. So again, building enterprise value for yourselves, or if some of you are coaches or consultants, like building that for your clients, like how do you establish a clear baseline? How do you actually look at whatever you're assessing the health of companies? Like how do you assess like the drivers of the work you're going to do together? And then you can get into the improvements and start building together and measuring results. And again, we apply this internally at Cultivate every single year. And so I wanted to slow down on a few things because Steve and I had a discussion around really what's been the most pivotal. So I shared kind of like the company story, including my embarrassing, terrible marketing graphics from earlier. But then I also shared where we've been and where we're going. I shared basically kind of like our prospecting and sales process and what we focus on to create ROI for clients, just so you can see our client experience. I'll share now just like what have been the big milestones, at least on our journey, our chapters that have been pivotal to get to where we're at today. So, number one was that we had to get extreme clarity on what the product offering, pricing, and contract, like we really got that down. Did we have it perfect out of the get-go? No, it was an evolution over 3 to 5 years. So don't sit in paralysis if you think that like, do I have it right? Don't go to market till I have it right. No. Go out to market and learn from it, but continuing to focus on how you tweak it until you get that offering, that pricing, and like how the contract is laid out for expectations on both sides of the bus. Continue to refine that. We had price changes almost every other year since we started the company. That's normal, right? Especially with price inflation of everything, right? Like that's just normally going to happen. The second thing that we really had to get down was like, and we were trying to get it down from the get-go, is like, how do we prospect and what is our sales process for scale? Keyword for scale. So how can we duplicate this and make it so simple that if I left and I handed a book and a training video to somebody, they could go do this and perform. They could get prospects in the door and they could do this high valued sales process that gives them a ton of value, where it's kind of a no brainer that like they see the ROI if they move forward. And so how well do you have that process to get enough prospects to hit your goal and the sales process to convert at a high rate? I'd say when we started this, we were landing 25% of our free advising sessions. And then halfway through, we were at about 35 to 40. And now we're approaching 60% of free advising sessions become a client. And it's not just because we're really good at pitching. We're not car sales reps. When we see a client that we know we can help, we have a really good way of making sure that we clearly slow down until we figure out like, how do we create ROI together? And then now let's go do it. And we got really good at prospecting where we're talking to the right people. So the more you actually target in and go like, which audience do I talk to? And more importantly, which audience are not a fit? You start to spend time and load up the prospecting and leads with the right, beautiful people, prospects that you know you can help with your product or service. And so that's why your conversion will go up too, is because you're actually in front of the right people too. The next thing is consistent recruiting. So my buddy just started a fractional CFO business. And within 2 months of him starting, he's like, any advice for me? I was like, load the bench. And he's like, load the bench. He's like, I'm just trying to get revenue in here. And I was like, I know, but I promise you, especially if you're in the professional service world, you'll get into the vicious cycle of you load up a bunch of revenue because you've been driving sales hard. Then now you're stuck in all your billable hours. And then all of a sudden, when you lose clients, you have zero revenue. And then you do it over and over and over again versus loading the bench. It doesn't mean you need to hire them as W-2s and start throwing money out the door. But are you surrounding yourself with a consistent recruiting engine of talking about like, hey, here's where we're going. Would you ever be interested if we're ever hiring this role? Like, are you surrounding potential talent? Right? And you're very clear on the target of who you're recruiting. You got clear tactics to get in front of the best people. And you got a very clear compensation structure that when they win, you win, client wins, everybody wins. And so getting ahead of that was something we really had to master at year 4, year 5. And then we started to load a lot of people. So now I was like, we got to make sure we got great leadership. So leadership, training, the culture, like building a performance culture became the new thing that we had to really master, right? While we probably had big egos like, well, we've done this inside of a franchisor numerous times before, we got it down. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, we had to go through a lot of learning and really master what our culture was to build performance culture, not only for hitting sales goals, but doing outstanding work for clients so that everybody's getting a ton of ROI. And then I think I wanted to share like one of these final bullets before I get into some other details and then Q&A, because Steve, you gave me some topics here, was every time, every year, every chapter of your business, you have a decision to scale or stay. And most of the time, most entrepreneurs, depending on their barrier of risk that they're willing to take, choose stay, and they're kind of waiting to, when I get to here, then I'll do that. Right? Or when I get to this thing, or when I get the next contract, I'll invest in this. And I'm telling you, you got to be way ahead of it. You just got to build a cash flow plan, know when you're going to take risk, what does the risk look like, and make wise investments, whether it's in people, tools, marketing, vendors, sales vendors. Like, just know that you're going to have to take action at some point. The discussion of the chicken or the egg is going to always be a discussion. But I promise you this, I have lost a lot of money and time on this journey, but all of it was not lost truly. Because lost money and time is actually the most amazing learning in the world that allowed us to pivot every time to make better and better and better decisions that allowed us to actually go, oh my gosh, I now thought of how we're going to approach it after spending $100,000 on this thing or $200,000 on this thing. And those ended up becoming the best learning and investments that we allowed us to get to where we're at today. So I'm not telling you to just go take out a monster loan tomorrow and just take all the risk in the world. It's got to be calculated risk. But if you're going to want to scale, you got to be conscious of like, there's going to be investments on the way. And sometimes you are going to feel like, do I wait for this before I do that? Run the cash flow, figure out what you're willing to do. When we would hire, 10, 20, 30 new people on a team, we knew we were taking a loss. We knew that the line was going down on the profit chart for so long. And then we looked at it at month 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, all the way out to 24 months, 36 months. And what does this look like if that investment pays off? And we did that every single time in like short-term planning and risk management, but you got to look at the big picture too. So as you continue to make your decision of scale or stay, like you're going to have to reinvest or take some risk here and there if you're really looking to scale the business, right? And it's hard too, because it's much easier to collect money and just go, let me just take this revenue and put it at home versus reinvest it. I tell you what, my employees were making more money than me for a long, long time, for a majority of the time in this business. But for me, it was totally worth it. It was a reinvestment in the future of the company. I'm not telling you all you should do that, but just be conscious of like, where do you take risk and like run the long term as well. And so I'm going to take a pause there. Steve, I'm going to go to you for a second because there was a few things that we chatted about inside of these bullets.
Yeah.
Not sure if I hit everything in case you had some questions or the group has any questions.
Yeah, we got some good questions in the group, so I'll bring us to those. But I'm going to hover on that last bullet for a little bit because I think what you're talking about there is the difference between an abundance mindset and a scarcity mindset, right? So how did you guys as a team, how did you maintain an abundance mindset through periods of uncertainty? Because I know, I talk to entrepreneurs all the time. The last 3 years, there's been a lot of uncertainty. It was economic, then it was election, and then it seems like economic again. So I see a lot of people with reasons to hold tight as opposed to lean in. How'd you guys do that? It sounds like there was a mindset there as well as, some of the principles you talked about with kind of play it out, right? Like project it out. But from a mindset standpoint, how do you maintain that abundance mindset?
Well, with every challenge or thing that goes wrong comes a new opportunity, right? And like I've learned that through 2 challenging times that I think we can all remember. So when I was selling franchises and training them and consulting them, one of those happened in 2009, when we all know what kind of happened throughout that time period as far as the economy. So we ended up actually crushing it in sales, even though we were getting crushed on the front end of nobody's buying. What we did was we like sat down and go like, how do we solve this for everybody where they all still get what they want, but they don't have to spend as much money? Because that's the concern for our clients right now. But they're going, this is not a need. This is a want. I can get by with another year to 5 years without painting. So simple concept. We got very creative and just said, well, what parts of the house do you know you need to do and you can't do it yourself? And they're like, Second story, I don't want to get on a big ladder, and we do need to do it soon. So we're like, great. We have a lot of clients right now where they're doing the step ladder work and we're taking all the high dangerous stuff.
Yeah.
Should I run a quote for you on that? And we signed a ton of contracts on that deal. And guess what happened when summer came, when we were actually painting those homes? You know what? Just finish the house.
Yeah. Yeah.
So we ended up just crushing it because we got more contracts on these smaller revenue deals. And then they ended up saying, just do it all anyways. COVID, just to bring some PTSD back for everybody here.
Yeah. Thanks.
You can only imagine. So we're industry agnostic of the clients we work with. So when COVID hit, we had very specific industries that got destroyed, right? Hospitality, tourism. So we happen to actually be a big part of building out the Global Food Tour Association, and had a lot of clients in that area. So some of them were coming into our advising sessions going, don't worry, I've got plenty cash flow. We're good. I can pay my employees for at least the next 3 to 4 months. And we're like, hold on. Your revenue is built on pre-ticket sales for the tours that are coming up, right? And they're like, yeah. We're like, what are you going to do about all the money you owe back to all those clients because you can't take them on tours? And they're like, my God, never mind. And we're like, all right. So we basically made a deal with our clients. We're like, fire us now, but we're going to keep advising you. We're going to tailor it down to 1 hour a month. We want you to thrive. And when it makes sense, turn it back on. So we ended up going to spending a lot more money with nothing in return. The next thing is we knew that the magic of our company was our team and our people. So Casey and I came together and said, we're going to cut our pay for so many months and just put that away to hold on to cash for our team. And then our leadership team underneath us said, hey, we'll all take a month off of pay as well to add to that pot. So it was this culture that we built together of what are we investing in? We're all going to go through some hard times. And so we all made this decision to reinvest in ourselves to get through the time. What's crazy was that as we did that, we built so much trust as a team and culture. We had the largest sales month in the history of the company 2 months into the pandemic.
Wow.
And it was because it was a calling to them of what we're all going to go have to do. And there was a lot of trust and appreciation, and everybody went heads down to go find other industries and opportunities we haven't looked at that we could go advise at a top level. And we found a lot of great opportunities that industries that needed a lot of help during that time, and they had the cash flow. So it was not luck. I think a lot of people were putting their heads down and going I'll pull my head out of the dirt when this is done.
Yeah.
We just said, how are we going to address this? We're not shutting our doors and we're not going to go hide. So how are we going to approach the future? And let's build a plan together.
Yeah. That's
And
awesome.
it was again, a theme of reinvestment versus going when we get through this, right? So am I addressing that question?
That's great. I love that. That's really, really good. Just illustration of the, adaptability, creativity that was fostered when things got tough, and then just the ability to kind of give, right? In a tough time to give back, and then the goodwill that was returned to you several times over, it sounds like. So that's awesome.
Dan, thank you so much.
Thank you all. And let's go crush it, right? What is everybody's BHAG by 2030? What are you going to go achieve? Write it down and let's go crush it. All right. And I'm rooting you all on, and entrepreneurs serving entrepreneurs. Let's do it.
Thank you, Dan.
That's great.
Thank you guys.
Thanks, Dan. Thanks, everyone.
Take care.